it's
Oh,
taking
now
it.
it's
Oh, okay. So let's see. I'm gonna wait for people in the chat room to say that they see us. And then adjust this mic stand that I'm gonna trip on and fall. Okay. Chat room, can you see us? If you see Kiki, it's the wrong show.
Right, yeah. She won't be joining us tonight.
She's having an amazing time, and she deserves it at a concert.
Also,
My mic
pre-show
stand is
note,
Yeah.
note. Any of our Canadian listeners, if you could send us whatever paperwork is required to obtain citizenship, we just want to look it over. We just want to look it over. Just thinking about it.
Just perusing.
Look it over.
Do any of the Canadian zoos need staffing?
Or whatever I do.
Yeah. Pipetting? Are there any pipetters or swabbers needed? Okay. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
We're gonna do a show now.
Yes. Is this where it starts?
Hold on.
Wait, did we already start?
Will you?
I don't know. I'm trying to be ready.
Do the whole like Kiki professional intro thing. Ready?
Okay, here we go.
There's a motorcycle. Okay. Could you hear it?
Couldn't hear it. No, could not hear it. Fantastic.
All right. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 675, recorded on Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. It's science, Daddy-O! Hello, everyone. Dr. Kiki's not with us tonight. I am Blair Bazdarich, and tonight we will fill your head with world robot domination, Pandora's viral box, and philandering birds. But first...
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Humans are accomplished, remembered for, by whichever life form takes sentient center stage in the far-flung future. The first thing to remember about trying to accomplish anything yourself is that failure is made. Thomas Edison didn't just have a bright idea.
Stop.
What happened?
You froze for the first several seconds of that.
Did I really? I didn't freeze on my end. I kept going.
You froze twice. Okay, I'm going to start again one more time. Are all of your plugs plugged? And
I have everything's. Oh, wait. Yes, everything's always the way it is.
Okay, nothing's downloading or anything like that?
Hey, this is a disclaimer about things not working. This is fantastic.
Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm going to start again.
Okay.
This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 675, recorded on Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. It's science, Daddy-O! Hello, everyone. I'm Blair Bazdarich. Dr. Kiki is not with us tonight. But tonight, we will fill your head with world robot domination, Pandora's viral box, and philandering birds. But first...
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Humans are the most accomplished life form on planet Earth. Accomplishing amazing things is what they will be remembered for by whichever life form takes sentient center stage in the far-flung future. The first thing to remember about anything you try to accomplish is that failure is imminent. Failure. The art of getting it wrong is how all good discovery is made. Thomas Edison didn't just have a bright idea for a working light bulb. He invented 1,000 dimly lit bulbs. Until one day he failed to get it wrong. And for every accomplishment that seems to show greatness, brilliance, or genius, we must remember that this is the result of a tremendous embrace of failure. That any accomplishment casts a long shadow is only because of how late in the day we are seeing it. Embracing failure learning from mistakes, and pressing on isn't just the sort of thing that some great inventors do. It's what we all celebrate together each time we tune into This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Blair.
And good science to you, Justin. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episodes of This Week in Science. We have a great show ahead. On this week's show, we have tons of science news. I have stories about artificial intelligence for good, for bad, and maybe some questionable applications. I have information about therapy dogs in veterans with PTSD. And I have lots and lots of science news about science mishaps and what we can learn about it. What do you have, Justin?
I have a potential breakthrough in the origins of the genome.
Say what?
Yeah. Volcanic climate, lots of Lucy in the Sky with Nanodiamonds, and what God really looks like to some people in a survey.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. Well, as we jump into the show, we're going to get right into it. We do not have Dr. Kiki with us tonight. She is on a much deserved break from the show this 1 week. So we've got the helm. Hopefully we can keep it together.
Doctors away. Patients will run the asylum.
But I will remember, as she would say, that we want to remind all of you that you can subscribe to TWIS on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spreaker, any place you can find podcasts. You can find us by searching for This Week in Science. You can also go to twis.org to find out all the places we're available. But first, we are going to start off with some news. I'm actually going to start with, speaking of Justin's disclaimer, I have the perfect science news story to start with tonight, and it's all about when science goes wrong.
Uh-oh.
So we're human, right? Even scientists will admit are humans. And so humans sometimes make mistakes. And there was something that came out on Wednesday in the New England Journal of Medicine looking at retracted and republished studies. In particular, this was one on the Mediterranean diet. And there were actually 5 other corrections this week as well. Most of them had to do with food science in some way. And separately, Cornell University was investigating some allegations of research misconduct, quotey unquotey, against more food marketing and food research studies. So this is kind of a moment to take a step back and look at what happens in research when something is not replicable. And when something looks like there might be something confusing there. Remember, we talk all the time about peer review. And this is exactly what it's for, is to make sure that nothing is released within a vacuum in the scientific community. So
unless that's part of the experiment.
Right. Absolutely. The one that I mentioned from the New England Journal of Medicine, actually, after the issue was raised, they kind of did some reassessment and found that it didn't alter conclusions from the paper, which is pretty cool. So they were able to republish with some new edits, but the findings were the same, which is really interesting. So overall, we are seeing that retractions are on the rise. There are about 10 times as many corrections as retractions on the whole, but we are seeing more of both, but they are still on the whole rare. So in 2016, there were 2 million studies published and about 1,350 were retracted. So that's less than 0.1%. But to put it in perspective, that was 1 million papers in the year 2000 with 36 retractions.
Yeah, that's not bad.
It's definitely a lot more, but it's still not a lot. The reason that we think this is happening is not that scientists are getting sloppy or that more wrong studies are slipping through the cracks or anything like that. Actually, we think it's because more people are looking, and that's because of the internet. So people are able to look very easily and very quickly for plagiarism, for manipulated images, for manipulated data, and things are more easily replicated if you have the information readily available on how the study was run. It's also available at your fingertips. You don't have to go to a library and look it up in a research journal. So this is something that's on the rise, but actually we think this is a good thing in science because there are more eyes on studies in general. In the second kind of instance that I mentioned, there were about 11 cases raised in this food journal, and 10 of the 11 cases were resolved. 5 of those, the challenge was proved incorrect. The other 5 mostly had terminology errors and things like that that were easily corrected and republished. So an example of one of these things where in the New England Journal of Medicine was that they had a study where they were following people on the Mediterranean diet. And if more than one person in a household wanted to join the study, they would let them, like a spouse or a child. And that meant that their sample size was not random and that certain genetics were overrepresented, right? And so when they pulled the relatives out, the bottom line remained the same. And so they are now publishing both versions so they can show the family-based data and the not family-based data. So overall, a lot of these researchers looking at this, issuing corrections, these sorts of things, they're not upset. They're impressed with how quickly these things are being resolved and adjusted and how transparent it all is. The reason I brought this up, though, is that the internet has allowed us to kind of take a magnifying glass to a lot of these things, which is great. But the internet also allows us to think in sound bites. And so I could see how somebody would hear, oh, corrections and retractions on the rise in science, and that could discredit science as a whole. But as we've talked about more time and time again on this show, that is what makes science so special and so important, is that it's adjustable to new information. And so this is science doing its job. This is a community coming forward with a study with one sample size, other people trying to replicate it or looking at the data themselves, and growing, and the scientific knowledge growing as a result.
Yeah, and there's also like there's scientific knowledge in that study where the baseline remained the same once they got rid of the or once they got rid of the same genetic. That means it's you're actually finding out that it might have something more to do with genetics than the actual diet. Like it's or a combo of the two, right? So you even learn something through those mistakes.
Absolutely, yeah.
As long as, but it's and it was what the disclaimer was all about this week. There is a requirement of embracing getting it wrong over and over and over again in science and invention and pretty much any type of pursuit. You have to bunch before you get it right. Otherwise, it would have already been done.
Yeah. Yeah, and as people are mentioning in the chat room too, having all of that published online means very easy exporting of data and assessing of data. It also improves data sets in general because you can now engage the public in science. You can have citizen science. You can increase your data sets. So science can only get better as a result of connectivity. But I just want to make sure that everybody's kind of keeping their science hat on and remembering that correction and addition and kind of asterisks are the way science works. It's really exciting, actually. And then my other quick opening story, my other quick story is about, breathing. So breathing, it's something I like to do.
It's a good thing. I enjoy it too.
Yeah. So a recent study from New Zealand, from the Forest Service, looked at 50,000 children in New Zealand, looked at asthma rates, and looked at greenness of their habitats and non-native versus native plant ratios. What did they find? They found that greenness is correlated with lower rates of asthma. And they found that biodiversity is key to healthier breath. So greenness across a child's life helps protect them from asthma, 6% lower risk of developing the disease. Exposure to diverse natural vegetation across a child's life may also help protect them from disease, associated with another 7% reduction in risk. And their expectation for this is because biodiversity increases microbial exposure, which promotes immune function. So this is part of the hygiene hypothesis, and they found no evidence that reduced air pollution was associated with a protective effect, only that this greenness and this biodiversity protected from asthma. Then they looked at non-native land cover types and found with exotic conifers, for example, a 4% higher risk of asthma. So their expectation there is that the non-natives crowd out native species, and also they are more likely to generate pollen depending on the area. So believing that the relationship between biodiversity and health is universal. Because of this hygiene hypothesis, this should be true in theory for countries around the world. So just to let you know, as a little bit of context, about 8% of US children suffer from asthma. In New Zealand, it's 15%. It's actually a lot more. So it's not a huge percentage of the population, but it's a very decent chunk. And so a 6% and then another 7% reduction in asthma cases could be a big, big deal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're my stories. What do you got, Justin?
I've got a story. If confirmed, a groundbreaking new hypothesis would explain the source of life on Earth in a way hereto unfathomed and rewrite the history of evolution. Well, maybe it could do this. It centers on a somewhat recent discovery of giant Pandoraviruses. This is a strange family of viruses that have giant genomes. Many genes that they have no equivalents elsewhere in the known genome. And it turns out these Pandoraviruses may be gene factories. So 2013, discovery of two giant viruses, unlike anything seen before, blurred the line between the viral and the cellular world. Pandoraviruses are as big as bacteria. They contain genomes that are more complex than those found in some eukaryotic organisms. Their strange amphora shape and enormous atypical genome led scientists to wonder, where did these come from? What are they doing with all this genetic information? And they're just a virus. So the same team has since isolated more members of some in France, Germany, and Australia. And they compared with the 6 now known giant viruses to each other. Despite having very similar shapes, functions, these viruses only share half of their genes coding for proteins. Usually, members of the same family have many, many more genes in common. So it's already weird that we've got 6 examples of these, and they don't seem to have as much in common as we would expect. Furthermore, the new members contain a large number of orphan genes. These are genes which encode proteins that have no equivalent in other living organisms, which was also the case for the previously discovered ones. The unexplained characteristic is at the heart of a debate here over the origin of viruses now. What most surprised researchers is that when the orphan genes differed from one Pandoravirus to another, it was that it made it less likely that these were inherited, right? So you have, otherwise similar, like you would almost call this a species if you were talking about larger life forms. But they don't, like all these extra genes, because they're not sharing them. It's not like they have an ancestor. This isn't this wasn't just sort of handed down and then dropped off. This is just completely different stuff showing up. So what's going on? Bioinformatic analysis showed that these orphan genes exhibit features very similar to those of non-coding regions of the Pandoravirus genome. Findings indicate the only possible explanation for the gigantic size of the Pandoravirus genomes, their diversity, and the large proportion of these orphan genes they contain. They are making them up as they go.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they eat other genes.
No, that's what they're saying. The gene, like, that would be a great explanation. This is a transfer. This is like they've got this from somewhere else. But because we've got to, we don't know everything that's out there. But
yeah,
they think
it's
they're
so unusual.
just making up new genes, not mutating existing genes with the GC here and the TA there instead, right? Right. But this is just, let's write some code. Right.
So the idea is now that these Pandora viruses just were spitting out what turned into all of life.
Right. An experimental factory of stochastic gene creation, right? Where they're like, yes, you extrapolate this across the infinite speculative horizon. And this may not just be the answer to some of life's evolution with throwing out things that can code for proteins that it's not even using, but it may be the establishment of genetic sequences themselves if the virus came before the bacteria.
Interesting.
How crazy is this?
This is it's far out, man. This is pretty far out. It's interesting. It's intriguing. After all of the conversations that we've had of viruses, are they life? Are they not life? Have they been here longer than us? Are they new? To actually have them be the origin of life is like the ultimate smack in the face of everyone who's like, viruses aren't alive.
And that's the thing too. Like, we're looking for bacteria on Mars. We're not looking for viruses. Right?
Mistake,
this is
man.
A problem.
Big mistake.
This is a problem. You want to find, like, this is likely like how this works. I'm just going to be this machinery that makes genes and throws on, and then a couple of these genes get together and go, you know what? I think we can do something with this. I think this is going to be a good system. All of a sudden we have something that's operating.
Wow. So I look forward to more news on this. I'm wondering how one would go about trying to prove or disprove this theory. That would be tough.
Yeah. Well, right now. But time, more analysis, more research.
My time machine. That's what.
Future, a forward-facing time machine where we can go into the future moment by moment until we've got it.
Well, or you could just go all the way back and go, there's nothing here but Pandoravirus.
Right. So what's sort of interesting though is if you, and they don't even, like, I guess they're not even creating them in the same places. Like, it also seems to be sort of like they don't have like set points within where they're adding genes. It's sort of like showing up in different places where they seem to be making this evolutionary factory, experimental factory of genomics. But yeah. So how would you go back? Okay. So there are viruses that are, ancient viruses that are already implanted in our DNA. But yeah, you'd have to go way back in the timey-wimey machine.
Yeah.
To see how that interplay could possibly take place.
This is crazy. Every time we talk about the origin of life, I remember, being a student in high school and them talking about the primordial soup and all of these things and saying, well, we think it probably works like this. We have some ideas. We were able to prove this in a lab, but not that. And in our lifetime, we might actually have an answer to how life began. Is insane. And I am so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Do you have any other stories to start the show?
Oh, there's another one. So we talked about the origin of life on the planet.
Yes,
Let's talk about one of its potential ends.
Oh, no.
Call it what you like. Global warming, climate change, we have skyrocketing levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide, which is siphoning oxygen from oceans at an alarming rate. So fast that even scientists whose job it is to understand such processes aren't entirely sure of how severely the planet will respond. Instead of just giving up, though, they're looking to the planet's past to see if they can find some answers. And a study we published this week in the Journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, researchers from Florida State University delved into ancient Earth climate. And what they found within the data? Deoxygenated oceans that had disastrous effects on marine life at the time. Millions of years ago, there were skyrocketing levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and it wasn't man-made.
Right.
Back
that
then,
old chestnut. Yes.
Yeah, back then it was naturally occurring, sort of. Powerful volcanoes were erupting en masse. They were pumping Earth's atmosphere full of carbon dioxide, and this subsequently, over many, many millennia, were draining the oceans of oxygen, and as a result, there was a mass extinction of marine organisms. This is quotey voice. We want to understand how volcanism, which can be related to modern anthropogenic carbon dioxide release, manifests itself in ocean chemistry and extinction events, said study co-author Jeremy Owens, assistant professor at FSU's Department of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Science. Could this be a precursor to what we're seeing today with oxygen loss in our oceans? Will we experience something as catastrophic as this mass extinction event? So for the study, they kind of focused on the Terrasian Oceanic Anoxic event, which if you haven't heard of before, it's because it occurred in the early Jurassic period.
Yeah.
It was before there was, we weren't here. We wanted to reconstruct early Jurassic ocean oxygen levels to better understand the mass extinction and the Terrasian Oceanic Anoxic event, said Theodore Them, postdoctoral researcher who led the study. We used to think of ocean temperature and acidification as a 1-2 punch, but more recently, we've learned this third variable, oxygen change, is equally important. By analyzing the thallium isotope composition of ancient rocks from North America and Europe, the team found that ocean oxygen began to deplete well before the defined time interval traditionally ascribed to the Terrasian Oceanic Anoxic event. So when they dialed it back, what did they see? Like, what was the thing that was before this? What was the thing that precursor? It was massive volcanic activity and rising carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Yeah, oxygen's kind of important as we just discussed. So actually I was reading another story that came out this week. I'll just give you the headline of it, that higher ocean temperatures are associated with less nutrition content in seafood. So
I read that too.
Yeah. So it's just a thing where when water gets warmer, it is less turbid. It carries less nutrients. It carries less oxygen. And when warmer water moves to places where there's usually cold water, animals have trouble finding the nutrients, oxygen, cold water that they're used to. And so as we kind of get these weird cold water currents moving around due to climate change, we're starting to see these effects. These are kind of our current precursors to what could happen if the overall temperature gets too high. I
like Them's quote here. If you're an oxygen-consuming organism, you don't want to see major changes in marine oxygen levels.
Nope, sure don't.
You either adapt or you go extinct. Kind of, those are the choices.
I vote adapt. One of those adaptations is lowering our dependence on fossil fuels.
Yeah, I was going to go with, up till this story, I was going to attempt to genetically modify myself with gills.
Oh, gills. Yeah, that'll do you no good without any oxygen.
There's deoxygenating the oceans. Like, it's pointless. Can't even hide there.
Yeah, you could try to get some anaerobic bacteria kind of symbiotically living inside of you and somehow helping you out that way. But that would be tough.
Sounds awesome.
I think that'd be tough.
That might be easier than growing gills, actually. I don't know. We'll have to look into it. Do I know what time it is?
Oh, I think you might. Let me just get this ready here. What time is it?
It's time for Blair's Animal Corner.
Yes.
With Blair.
Loves are creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. You want to hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels.
What you got, Blair?
I have philandering birds. So birds don't get married, so it's difficult to philander. However, there's a lot of birds out there.
I don't even know what the word. Can I stop the whole show right now? Just
okay.
I don't know what the word philandering means.
A philanderer is someone who has extramarital relationships, has casual encounters. So that's a philanderer. Birds.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah, that's a fun word, philanderer. So birds, a lot of birds are monogamous. Emperor penguins, famous for monogamy. A lot of birds have this quote unquote monogamy where they pair bond, often for many seasons. But the animal kingdom is not all fairy tales. A lot of those monogamous relationships include quote unquote extramarital relationships. So looking at songbirds like sparrows, a team of researchers from Imperial College London wanted to see in a captive population of sparrows the reason for a very odd phenomenon, which is that when female birds have chicks as the result of an extramarital relationship, so she has a chick from not her quote unquote husband, we'll call him, right? It's almost always from older males. So this research is looking at why. Why is it that older male birds are the ones fathering kind of extramarital babies? So they wanted to see in this captive population of sparrows one of two possibilities. They kind of had two potential hypotheses. The first was that older males are better at wooing the females. So the male manipulation hypothesis. They're just more suave and more experienced. The other hypothesis is that females actually are looking for more from the older males. So they're going, oh, he's got it set up. I'm going to get some real good alimony from him. I don't know.
Wait, what?
Child support. Who knows? No, it's the females are soliciting the copulation from older males instead of from younger males. This is the female choice hypothesis. They observed more than 450 mating attempts. It's quite a research job. Okay. And found that older males did not try to make females cheat more often than younger males. So the mating attempts were even between older and younger males. Thus, the male manipulation hypothesis out the window. Okay. They also found that the successful affairs were more often solicited by females. So that indicates that they are the ones who chose when and who they would cheat with to have these extramarital
babies. And the male birds are the philanderees.
In a way, yes, absolutely. And so the females are the ones appearing to make the decision. However, they are not choosing older males more often than younger males. So the female choice, out the window. So they didn't observe males cheating more, older males cheating more than younger males. We didn't see older males being wooed by females more than younger males, but they did see older males fathering more offspring. What is happening here? The suggestion is
experience.
So it could be experience. The mechanics were better. Their hypothesis now actually is that it has to do with sperm competition. So they are suggesting that post-copulation mechanisms might be driving older male success. So it's not that the men are more experienced, it's that their sperm are.
Wiser sperm.
Wiser sperm, exactly. So female choice might still be a factor because it turns out that the female sparrows can actually store sperm for weeks. So they might be able to, as happens with cephalopods, for example, they might be able to, quote unquote, decide which sperm goes to fertilization. But this is really hard to study. Right now, all they know is that mating attempts and who mates is not what decides. It's something after mating decides that the older males have more babies. So this is most likely a biological effect, not a behavioral one. So the reason I bring this up is, like I said, we've studied sperm competition and sperm selection in a lot of invertebrates, fruit flies, cephalopods. We've looked at this, earthworms, but not a whole lot in vertebrates, which is why this whole bird situation is very interesting. And I would love to see how far this goes. Is there sperm competition or sperm selection happening in other birds? Is it happening in mammals? Is it happening in humans? Can you imagine? Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So anyway, that's the older men. It's not that they're more suave. It's that their sperm is more suave.
Their sperm are just better at feathering a nest.
They've got a little more hair on their chin, as it were. Moving on to a really interesting study about humans and their interactions with animals and human health. Something that we've talked a little bit about on the show, but is a constant area of research and concern, is veterans who come back with PTSD and how to best treat them and improve their quality of life. And a new study from Purdue University College of Veterinary Medicine is looking at the biobehavioral effects of service dogs on veterans with PTSD. So in the past, there have been studies where they've looked at more anecdotal behavioral impacts of the service animals. And so this is something that relies a lot on self-reporting. I feel less anxious after getting my dog, right? But this is something where they actually wanted to study a real physiological change. So they compared groups of veterans with PTSD who had service dogs to a group on the wait list to receive a service dog. So their previous research that's a lot more self-reporting based found that service dogs reduced clinical PTSD symptoms and improved quality of life overall. But again, this is mostly self-reporting, right? And so they wanted to see if that actually translated to what was happening in their body. They looked at cortisol, which is a common way to check stress in humans. It's a biomarker, and they can study it non-invasively because you can just do a swab out of your mouth with saliva. They look particularly at cortisol awakening response. So you swab when you first wake up, and then you swab 30 minutes later. They wanted to see if there was a spike in cortisol, which apparently is normal. So this is the cortisol awakening response. So you don't have it when you first wake up, and then 30 minutes later, you should have some cortisol running through your body. And this has been a good metric of chronic and acute stress. There's not as strong of a cortisol awakening response if you have chronic or acute stress. So non-PTSD healthy adults had this normal level increase in cortisol, and they found that military veterans with a service dog in their home produced more cortisol in the mornings than those on the wait list, and their pattern was much closer to the cortisol profile expected in healthy adults without PTSD than the ones on the wait list. Having a service dog was also associated with less anger, less anxiety, and better sleep.
So the better sleep one is the one I was wondering about right there because so the idea that I've got of this is that it's not the stress And would it be happening during sleep, the fitful sleep, burning cortisol? So it's not just that you don't have the spike, it's that you're burning this all the time, so there's no place for it to spike. So sleeping better through the night
allows it to drop off a little more.
Would allow the interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is the first study of its type. So they have not been able to establish a direct correlation on an individual level longitudinally. So their idea is they now want to study veterans with and without service dogs over a period of time. So they'd want to study someone before the service dog, after the service dog, and then let's say they take the service dog away again and see what happens, right? I know. So that's part of the thing, which is why at the very end they say, this is their big, disclaimer at the very end, is they did want to make sure that everyone knows that they are super grateful to the military veterans and their families who have participated in research. Obviously, they've been through a lot already. So for them to help participate in research to help further people that come back with PTSD is a fantastic service that they are providing once again. And so they're super honored to collaborate with veterans and with the VA. And they really want to see kind of the cause and effect of this, because obviously they'd love to give everyone service dogs, but also there's a chance that if they can figure out what the dog is doing, if there's somebody that can't or does not want a service dog, this is something that could potentially be treated chemically. You can find it in other ways. You could find other ways of treating this. So there's lots of implications from here. But on a super fundamental, non-science-y level, it makes sense to me that if you give somebody, and this is something that they talk about with inmates as well, is that if you give somebody something else to take care of, sometimes that helps with a lot of other things. So it helps you, it widens your sphere in a lot of ways, right? So that's just my kind of like hippy dippy, touchy feely response to all of this, right? But it's really interesting to see that there is a physiological response to having the dogs around. Yeah. Pretty neat.
That is cool.
Yeah. Okay. If you've just tuned in, this is This Week in Science. We are about to go on a break, so please stay tuned, and we'll be back very soon with more. Hello, TWIS audience. Did you know that TWIS has merchandise that you might enjoy? You can go to twis.org to buy some of our swag. We have a link on our website that goes directly to the Zazzle store. If you've enjoyed any of the calendars over the past couple of years, we have a lot of stuff in the Zazzle store that has the images from our calendars on them. We have rompers, baby rompers, not adult rompers, maybe someday. We have mugs, we have bags, we have aprons, we have wrapping paper, we have stamps, we have so many amazing things. We even have a white polo shirt with the TWIS logo embroidered on it. We actually had a request from a TWIS listener come in who has to wear polo shirts to work. I believe they were a high school teacher. And so we were able to put that in the Zazzle store. So that also means if there's anything in particular from one of the calendars, from our logos, whatever it is, that you want on a particular type of item, if it's available in Zazzle anywhere, we are likely to be able to make that happen. So go ahead and shoot us an email, tweet, whatever, and let us know if there is something that you would like to purchase from Zazzle, and we are likely to be able to make it so. So go to twis.org, click on the Zazzle store link on the top in the menu bar, and start buying. TWIS is also supported by listeners like you with direct donations. Your donations pay for hosting, bandwidth, contractors we need to hire, fun things that we do for the show, trips to live shows, all that good stuff, supported by you. We appreciate any amount at all. $1, $2, $5, $10, $100, maybe $1,000? No.
Yes.
If you have $1,000, we'll take it. But I am not being presumptuous that anyone has that to give. If you do, we could take it. You make the show possible. We currently accept donations in 2 different ways. We have a PayPal donation button on our website. That's on almost every single page that you click on. You'll find these buttons, and that way you can donate directly to us through PayPal. The other, we have a Patreon account. If you go to patreon.com/thisweekinscience, that is kind of like a Kickstarter for media producers. So you can actually get stuff in return for your donation. You will donate per month for our show, and depending on the level, you could get a shout out, you could get a hangout on air with us, you could get a patch, you could get a t-shirt, you could get a piece of art from me. There's all sorts of cool stuff.
And this is our favorite form of donation because it's recurring. So in the event that you should unfortunately go into a coma that lasts for many months, your donation will continue to be withdrawn from your bank account, and you will continue to be supporting This Week in Science, even if you are unable to listen to the show.
That's very true. I believe there also are recurring donations available via PayPal, but they're kind of harder to find, but you can do those as well. So either way, you can go to the website, listen to our most recent episode, comment on the show, make a donation. All that is good. If you can't afford a donation, that's okay. We are happy you are here to share the science with us. We can use your help in a non-monetary way by helping people listen to and watch us. We want to spread the science news far and wide. Help us get that information out. Use your social networks online or in real life. Tell people about TWIS. If you hear an episode with a story that you think your friend might really like, send them the YouTube link. Thanks to Fada, who's in the chat room right now. He often does the timestamps to specific stories. You can figure out that. Send it to your friends. Maybe they'll get hooked and they can join our minions.
Or don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. But be the life of every party for your great breadth of scientific knowledge that you've acquired here. You will know the latest scientific news. You'll be the go-to person for everybody in your circle of friends. But it's sort of like telling a joke that you heard somebody else tell and making it sound like it's yours. If everybody you know is listening to the show, it wouldn't be as fun. But still, there's somebody who's an acquaintance who you know who would like this, who you don't run into that often, who you should tell about the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, if you listen to us on iTunes, you can help by posting a review. The reviews that are most recent, that have the most thumbs up, so you can also give a thumbs up to reviews. That will help us pop up to people who are looking for a new science podcast. So that's super helpful as well. No matter what, your merch, your donation, your spreading of the word, you're just listening and enjoying and participating.
That's the most
we
important
thank
part.
you for your support, and we would not and could not do it without you.
Unless you just started listening, in which case there's 674 other episodes that we did do without you that you should go back and listen to.
But we won't do any more without you.
No, we'll stop.
Yeah.
And we are back with more This Week in Science.
We are back, and I am so excited.
Yeah. Are you excited?
I'm excited. Do you know what I'm excited about?
I think I do.
It's time for our favorite part of the show. It's time for This Week in What Has Science Done For Me Lately? So we have a letter this week from Susan Barnum. She says, I love dogs, and I have a pack of dogs living with me and my kids. How appropriate to our last story. One of the wonderful things about science are all of the amazing types of medicine we have developed for our furry friends. There are vaccinations, pest control, and more. Also, the fact that dogs are one species and so different from one another in size, color, furriness, etc., it always blows my mind. I enjoy thinking about how they've been with us for so long. as scientists discovered by looking at the genetic clock, and how we've most likely influenced each other's lives. Taking my dogs to the vet means that I get to spend even more quality time with my canines. Smiley face. Thanks for your awesome show. I love what each of you brings and how you have unique voices and perspectives. Thank you, Susan. Awesome. I love hearing about all of the human medicinal impacts, hearing about the animal medicinal impacts of science, and then also just about how we've learned about how dogs have evolved alongside us and how that's a result of scientific research as well. Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. Remember, we need more of these. We want to read these every single week. We want to hear your story of how science has helped you. What has it done for you lately and every day? So please leave us a message on our Facebook page. That is the best way to get these to us. That's facebook.com/thisweekinscience, or email Dr. Kiki at kirsten@thisweekinscience.com. And we do want to keep this going forever, but as long as we can get it going is great. Just keep sending those. And again, if you have friends that listen, kind of poke at them, get them to send theirs in as well. We want to hear from everybody. Yeah. All right, Justin, you have more science for us?
More sciencey-ish stuff. Ever wonder what God looks like?
You know, I can't say that I have.
Yeah, if you're an atheist, it's unlikely you've spent much thought on it.
Yeah.
But even atheists might have a placeholder image for what religious people might be holding in their minds.
Oh, are you referring to the white man with the white beard in a white robe?
You would think. So a team of psychologists at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, wanted to know the face of God. So they asked if they could see God. Not directly. They talked to 511 self-reported Christians. Participants in the study saw hundreds of randomly varying face pairs and selected which face from each pair appeared more like how they imagined God to appear. By combining all of the selected faces, researchers could assemble a composite of the face of God that reflected how each person imagined God to appear. Their results apparently were surprising and revealing. From Michelangelo to Monty Python, illustrations of God nearly always show him as the old man with the white beard wearing a robe, right?
Yeah.
But researchers found many Christians saw God as much younger, more feminine, and less Caucasian than popular culture suggests.
See, that was what I said, a white guy.
Yeah, right? And in fact, people's perceptions of God tended to rely partly on their political affiliation. Liberals tended to see God as more feminine, younger, and with more loving-looking features than conservatives. Conservatives also saw God as more Caucasian and more, I guess, powerful looking than liberals.
Zeus. They saw Zeus.
That's
what
Zeus.
I always think
They're
about.
worshiping secretly worshiping Zeus all this time. Quotey voice of Joshua Conrad Jackson, no relation, studies lead author. These biases might have stemmed from the type of societies that liberals and conservatives want. Past research shows that conservatives are more motivated than liberals to live in a well-ordered society, one that would be best regulated by a powerful God. On the other hand, liberals are more motivated to live in a tolerant society, which would be better regulated by a loving God. People's perceptions also related to their own demographic characteristics. Younger people believed in younger-looking gods. People who reported being more physically attractive tended to believe in more physically attractive gods.
So it sounds like people in general are seeing themselves in God, which I feel like speaks to a larger issue.
Right. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, African Americans, a little less of a Caucasian God.
Yeah.
People's tendencies to believe in a God that looks like them is consistent with egocentric bias, says Professor Kurt Gray, study senior author, psychology professor in the College of the Arts and Sciences at UNC Chapel Hill. People often project their beliefs and traits onto others, and our study shows that God's appearance is no different. People believe in a God who not only thinks like them, which is also a whole thing, right? But also looks like them. Interestingly, however, people did not, in this study, the 511 people studied, did not show an egocentric biases on the basis of gender. Men and women believed equally in a masculine-looking God, at least the participants in the, wherever it was, North Carolina.
Well, if you cite the source text, they say he a lot. So that might have something to do with it, right?
Could have a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of those that are he this,
a
he
lot
that.
of them.
There's a lot
the
of
grand majority of source texts, I would argue, use the male pronoun.
Yeah, the photo that came along with this study, and I don't know that that's like, this is okay. Yeah, there's a picture. If you want to see God's face, there's a picture out there that maybe we can link.
I'm gonna try.
Which is God's perceived face based on the aggregated responses of surveyed American Christians. And I don't know, maybe is that looks a little like Val Kilmer. Like,
yeah, so that's
Kilmer,
so funny because
Justin Trudeau, maybe.
There we go.
Who is this guy?
Someone in the chat room said that he looked like Pete Holmes, which is so funny because Pete Holmes in his stand-up calls himself feminine Val Kilmer.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Yeah.
So there you go.
There it is.
So there he is.
Who knew?
He is smiling. He has quite a kind face.
And this one, yeah. So, but this is also interesting. Like, of course, like my immediate bias, in analyzing,
analyzing,
and is the fact that it took place in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's a closed sample to be sure.
It's flyover country, like it just is.
The Carolinas wouldn't like you saying that,
right? No, but like I think like if you took this same survey of Christians and threw it in California, or Texas,
you might get a lot more Mother Gaia. Is that what you're getting at? Yeah,
like you really I think would see more. And again, this is also a specific religion which has the right substrate text of he this, he that, he this, he that. So we might stay kind of if you open up the question to what does God look like, I think you get, without having it be based on whether or not the respondents are Christian or not, I think you get a much different response. But I think the point is of this study, it proves that nobody's seen this individual.
That's true.
No, there is disagreement on,
yes,
at the very least, this front.
Yeah, so not surprised. But I do think it's very interesting and telling that there's this representation alignment, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it kind of proves what the symbolism and point of this deity is to a lot of people in a lot of cultures. Is it's their representation, it's their authority, it's their advocate.
Right.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when representation doesn't exist in political authority. Sometimes people have to look elsewhere, but that's all right. That's a whole other story.
No, I mean, you don't actually have to look further than all of the images of the blue-eyed, sandy blonde-haired Jesus, right?
Yes, that's a good point.
But
again,
the member of the Bee Gees Jesus.
Yes,
right? Like,
in other circles, he looks a little different.
A lot of Jesuses out there, just to name one.
Yeah.
The things that people have taken liberty with. I think actually, in a way, that I think that the Muslim religion did a really good job, because there's also like Buddhists got like there's a skinny Buddha, there's a fat Buddha, but then it's like the whole like let's just never agree on what Muhammad looks like.
Yeah, you can't. He lives in here.
Yeah, I just won't even go there.
It's fine. It
must have come up. Like this must have come up. There must,
I
right?
don't think that's why.
I think
but...
a long time ago there was some argument about this that caused all kinds. Okay, so that's like they had to make a deal. Like, okay, we're only going to like represent with a word or a symbol because people were like making different drawings and they were conflicting and they were causing too much grief.
Well, I also think it would be interesting to take this outside of the United States.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
That would be, I think you're exactly right though, is to look at, you're looking at a microcosm here. Yeah. To take it out into an area of the United States, then to take it out into the United States as a whole, but then to take it outside of the country would be a whole nother situation. It'd be pretty interesting.
Although I think we could cover all the bases, maybe not, maybe not a percentage Giles' representation, but I bet you we could cover all of the bases in this country. We're pretty diverse.
But people's perspectives are different having lived here than not having lived here. Yeah. Because we are such a melting pot and there are all these other kind of ideas and it would be different and I would be very interested to see.
Yeah.
So, you know what else I'd be interested to see? Through walls. MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory have gotten closer to seeing through walls.
Is MIT full of all the kids in Revenge of the Nerds?
Yes.
Who are like trying to see into the showers of the girls' locker room? Yeah. Is that what this is? Is this all that they've been working on all this time?
Their latest project, RF Pose, uses artificial intelligence to teach wireless devices to sense people's postures and movement from the other side of a wall. They're using neural networks to analyze radio signals that bounce off of people's bodies, and then the AI can create a stick figure that walks, stops, sits, moves, and moves its limbs around as the person performs those actions on the other side of the wall.
Wow.
So their kind of reasoning for this new artificial intelligence is that could be used to monitor diseases like Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis. It could provide a better understanding of disease progression. It could allow doctors to adjust medications. It could also help elderly people live more independently, I guess because you're spying on them, while providing the added security of monitoring for falls, injuries, and changes in activity patterns. So they're saying this could revolutionize healthcare. They're also saying that this could be used for new classes of video games where players can actually move around their house in search and or it could be used in remote search and rescue missions.
That sounds like the first thing.
That sounds like the best one out of the three, to be sure. They also posit that, quote, just like how cell phones and Wi-Fi routers have become essential parts of today's households, I believe that wireless technologies like these will help power the homes of our future, says one of the lead researchers from MIT. Now, to me, this sounds a little bit more like a spying device.
Yeah.
Also, it says, besides sensing movement, they could use this same AI and wireless signal kind of coupling to identify somebody 83% of the time out of a lineup of 100 individuals by looking at their face.
What? Like,
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's a lot. That's a lot different. Wait, give me the numbers again. Sorry.
The authors showed that they could use wireless signals to accurately identify a person's face 83% of the time out of a lineup of 100 individuals. So 83 of the 100 is what that means.
Okay. Well, that's pretty darned good for a through the wall stick figure.
Yeah.
Is it their face though? That's amazing that it's the face. I would think it would be like, this person obviously has length of femurs like this. And
this is not through a wall, as I understand it. This is using the same software and the same network to then identify individuals. Okay. But this is this is something that I think is really interesting and really amazing, and it would be so cool if we could see people like what they're up to on the other side of walls in, I don't know, a hostage negotiation and stuff like that. But I also see situations where this could maybe be it could fall into the wrong hands, perhaps. It could be abused. This is kind of yikes. This is yikes territory for me personally, world robot domination.
Well, you just got to line your insulation with tinfoil, maybe.
Yes. Let me bring out my tinfoil hat. Here's artificial intelligence doing something that I think is, without a doubt, a good thing. And that is helping to identify, count, and describe wild endangered animals. So this is a new use of motion sensor cameras and neural networks in order to automate animal identification. They found 99.3% of images were able to be identified, and their accuracy rate was the same as humans, 96.6%. So this way they're able to, in real time, collect data and count individuals out in the wild. This helps them improve their ability to study and conserve wildlife species and ecosystems. And it also can tell you all sorts of other things, what they're doing, whether they're eating, sleeping, if they're babies, how many are in the screen. And they think that this actually could save more than 8 years of human labeling for each 3 million images they collect. So this could way cut down on the amount of time from volunteers, usually, that help identify pictures from camera traps of endangered species. And that means that they can actually go do more hands-on things to help species. Yeah, pretty cool. So that's AI actually doing a helpful thing. Do you have any more stories, Justin?
I barely got started. I got to just scratch the surface. I got so many more stories.
Give me more stories.
Actually, I have one more story.
Oh, okay.
Astronomers have been puzzling over the source of a peculiar, specific type of faint microwave light emanating from a number of regions of our very own Milky Way galaxy. They've been calling this anomalous microwave emission, or AME. This light comes from energy released by some kind of spinning nanoparticle. Bits of matter so small that they defy detection by ordinary microscopes. So this is quotey voice of Jane Greaves, an astronomer with Cardiff University in Wales. Though we know that some type of particle is responsible for this microwave light, its precise source has been a puzzle since it was first detected nearly 20 years ago. But now they may have the answer, and they published in Nature Astronomy. Until now, the most likely culprit for this microwave emission was thought to be a class of organic molecules known as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs. So carbon-based molecules found throughout interstellar space, recognized by the distinct yet faint infrared light they emit, there must be, right? And so that's what it is. Pause. Oh, wait. Maybe there's something else. Nanodiamonds, particularly hydrogenated nanodiamonds.
Tiny wet diamonds?
These are tiny diamonds in the sky, out in space, bristling with hydrogen-bearing molecules on their surface, also naturally emit the infrared portion of the spectrum, but at a slightly different wavelength. Series of observations with the National Science Foundation's Green Bank Telescope, West Virginia, and the Australia Telescope Company Array has, for the first time, honed in on 3 clear sources of AME light. And this is the first clear detection of anomalous microwave emission coming from protoplanetary disks, says David Freyer, co-author of the paper and astronomer with the Green Bank Observatory. Astronomers also note the infrared light coming from these systems matches the unique signature of, will it be AME or will it be PAHs? Will it be AME or will it be PAHs? Which one is it? It's the tiny diamonds. Yeah. So, and they kind of like got this, this is In a Sherlock Holmes-like method of eliminating all other causes, we can confidently say the best candidate capable of producing this microwave glow is the presence of nanodiamonds around newly formed stars. Based on their observations, the astronomers estimate that up to 1 to 2% of total carbon in these protoplanetary disks has gone into forming nanodiamonds. That's kind of a lot. Although a nanodiamond is like a 500,000th of like the period on a bit of newsprint.
So too small for a ring is what you're telling me.
No, actually quite appropriate for a ring, I would say. Yeah, space is full of diamonds and emitting microwave light.
Well, diamonds are just carbon, so that makes sense.
Oh, but there's more to this. Hang on. I forgot where I was. I forgot there was. This detection has interesting implications for the study of cosmology and the search for evidence that our universe began with inflation. If immediately after the Big Bang, our universe grew at a pace that vastly outstripped the speed of light, a trace of that time of inflation, that period of inflation, should be seen in the peculiar polarization of the cosmic microwave background. Though the signature of polarization, can't find it. So the work by Greaves and her colleagues offers some hope that it could be. This is good news for those who study polarization of the cosmic microwave background, since the signal from the spinning nanodiamonds would be weakly polarized at best, says Brian Mason, an astronomer at National Radio Astronomy Observatory and co-author of the paper. This means that astronomers can now make better models of the foreground microwave light from our galaxy, which always has to get removed to study the distant afterglow of the Big Bang. So the more we understand the local noise that is being generated, the more that we can identify it, quantify it, and then eliminate it from what we're seeing in the universe, the more we're likely to be able to discover the polarization of the background microwave radiation. So, yeah, you might be able to do something pretty cool with that info.
Nice. Diamonds helping us figure out the universe.
Yeah.
I have one more story today, and it's all about dads. This Sunday, at least in the United States, is Father's Day. And a study came out from BYU and Ball State this week looking at the role of fathers in families in the United States and how they have changed in recent years. They found that today's dads spend more time, provide more care, and are more loving towards their kids than ever before.
Well, to be fair, it's because kids today, much better than kids used to be. Kids used to be terrible, but kids today, they're awesome. And that's why dads love you more.
Well, according to science, most dads see themselves now as playing an equally important role in helping children as mothers do, which is not how polls used to be. At the same time, there is still a small group of dads. It does look like it's shrinking, but there is still a small group of dads who believe that they are to be breadwinners, disciplinarians, and nothing more. So that was definitely the old trope of what a dad was, and that is slowly changing. There was a core. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so like everything else has changed around this too. It's not just dad attitudes that have changed. It's societal attitudes all the way around. Like
yes.
I caught my 3 children, right? Like I was there at their birth and I was the first to hold them. A older friend of mine remembers being in a hospital.
Oh, with the cigars.
His wife went off with the nurses and doctors.
Yeah.
And he was literally sitting in a room with other expectant dads, all of whom were smoking, and there was one phone. And it would and one of them would pick it up. Is it Mr. Johnson? Oh, yeah, it's for you. Okay, your child's been born. Oh, okay, I'll come back. But they weren't. And then it was like, you're a dad. you should probably not touch your kid for the first, couple of months because dads are dirty. You should just like stay away. Wash your hands a lot if you have to handle the child, but it's best if you just stay away. Like the attitudes about, and the understanding and everything else also evolved to allow dads, I think, to participate more.
Yes, absolutely. And this is part of what this study is about the societal expectations of masculinity. So they looked at correlations between these, what are considered positive traits that more and more fathers are exhibiting, alongside with masculine expectations of those families. So there was a correlation between fathers who exhibit what they call negative aspects of masculinity, more on that in a second, and fathers who are less involved with their children. So they count beneficial aspects of masculinity as things like being goal-oriented, loyalty, things of that nature, but they also identified quote unquote problematic aspects of masculinity, things like aggression, detached relationships, not showing emotion, not asking for help, right? And so all of these quote unquote negative aspects of masculinity hurts families according to this study, but they are lowering, which is the important thing, is that society is expecting less of those things from men, and men are therefore expecting less of that from themselves. So this was data from around 2,200 fathers. This was nationwide. It was on children, fathers of children ages 2 through 18. And then they had them evaluate themselves to a variety of statements. So examples of statements like, it is essential for the child's well-being that fathers spend time interacting and playing with their children. So agree, disagree. It is difficult for men to express warm and tender affectionate feelings toward children. Agree, disagree, right? So then they could weigh these things to each other. The results from the responses showed that on average, fathers of younger children engaged with them several times a week. Fathers of older children engaged with their child between once and several times a week, but they also knew a lot about their child's activities. Fathers of younger and older children only sometimes engaged in harsh discipline. This is a change from previous studies. Fathers of younger children stated that warm behaviors towards their child are very much like me, quote unquote. Fathers of older children acted warm toward their child between often and always. This is also a change, right? And fathers of older children generally agreed that their child could turn to them for emotional support. So previous research has shown that fathers struggle with the balance of adhering to masculine norms while still being emotionally available and nurturing towards their children. So this trend is something that continues, but they don't see it growing. They actually see it. They see it being less of an influencer on fathers today. So over the past several decades, fatherhood ideals have continued to change, and there are new parental expectations, and as a result, more changes in behaviors. Quote, as we teach boys and men to be more emotionally aware and cultivate emotional well-being, these men and boys will be able to become better fathers for their children, as they will be able to provide for them not only through financial contributions, but by being emotionally and mentally present for their children and their well-being.
Gotta say, as a father, I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm more. I'm still more of the like, look, I've been societally conditioned to be kind of unemotional and harsh to prepare you for a world of Spartan combat. And therefore, I'm going to tell you to spit on it, rub some dirt on it. And if you want to talk about it further, let's just karate fight instead. Can we do this?
I know that's not true. I saw that picture of you pulling your daughter's science experiment in a wheelbarrow to school, or not in a wheelbarrow, in a little like a
wagon,
radio flyer wagon.
Yeah, the whole time I'm telling her she's freaking out because she loves school and is terrified because the wind is starting to come up and the whole thing, like the whatever the cloth around it, the tablecloth around it started to whip up like it might rip, and so she's freaking out. I'm like, toughen up! It's a science experiment. Just be glad that you can do science.
But see, according to this study, the fact that you were present for that activity is a shift in societal norms and expectations for the better.
Yes.
So there we go. So coming up to this Father's Day, maybe in the 1950s, if Father's Day even existed, I don't actually know. Do you know when Father's Day happened? Because I feel like Mother's Day happened first, and then they were like, I guess we better give the guys something, but they weren't really doing much. And now they're actually, this study is showing us that Father's Day is a super important day if you want to compare it to Mother's Day, right? Because fathers are providing more and more emotional support. They're much more present in their children's lives. I think it's fantastic. It's really exciting.
What I'd be interested in seeing is where the consumer upticks of purchases take place. Mother's Day, I'm picturing there might be a lot of flowers sold. There might be, I don't know, boxes of candy sold. I don't know. I feel like Father's Day, there's a big uptake in beer and ties and maybe socks. Like, it's still not, it's different stuff.
Okay, so some quick Googling tells me, this is Wikipedia, so disclaimer, right? 1908 was the first Mother's Day. 1910 was the first Father's Day. So quickly thereafter, it was celebrated by a single father, or for a single father of 5 or 6 children. So he had to be emotionally available and provide for his children. No way around it. So fathers, mothers, guardians, thank you.
Yeah.
And it, our society shows that people are better equipped to be emotionally available and to provide. And I think it's fantastic. Yeah. Do you have any more stories, Justin?
I do, but we're out of time. So we'll have to save them for next week.
No. Well, we'll be there. This is normally the part in the show where we would thank our Patreon supporters. That is a managed list that Kiki has the password to. So instead, we are going to say to all Patreon supporters, but especially the ones that have donated enough to be shout-outed to on the show, thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in supporting us and joining the group of people that are not being named this week, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Also remember that you can help us out just by telling your friends about us. On next week's show, once again, we will be broadcasting live at 8 p.m. Pacific time on twis.org/live, and Kiki will be back. And you can watch us live and join our chat room. Thank you to our chat room. Thank you to our YouTube chat room. I haven't been able to watch it closely since I'm juggling several other things at the moment, but I will look at the comments in the YouTube when we're done here, and I'll try to circle back around. Thank you for being here regardless. We appreciate you. Don't worry if you can't make it live, though. You can always find our past episodes at youtube.com/thisweekinscience or at twis.org.
Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science in your iTunes directory. Or if you have a mobile type device, you can look up TWIS, the number 4, Droid app in the Android marketplace, or simply This Week in Science in anything Apple marketplacey.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website. That's at www.twis.org. While you're there, you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts or other listeners.
Yeah, or you can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twis.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIScience, at Dr. Kiki, and at Jacksonfly. Oh, also, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer and it shouldn't be news. That what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got a laundry list of items I want to address. From stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought. And I'll try to answer any question you've got. But how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we said, then please just remember it's all in your head. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
And there we have it. Another wonderful show.
Justin, can you do the disclaimer again? Because you cut out.
Yeah. I don't know if I got it in me. I'm going to have to try that one day.
You're going to have to try because we didn't get the middle.
All right. I have to do all my pre-show warm-ups.
Yeah, I'll do the lead in again so it's a clean cut. Are you ready?
Normally seen on the air. Hang on. Mamu, 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 me. The rain
ready?
in Spain falls mainly on the plain. Okay. I think I'm ready. Yeah, I'm still not ready. I got like a rasp in my voice. I didn't have the beginning.
Okay, I'm starting.
Oh, yeah.
This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 675, recorded on Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. It's science, daddy-o. Hello, everyone. I'm Blair Bazdarich, and today we will fill your head with world robot domination, Pandora's viral box, and philandering birds. But first...
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Humans are the most accomplished life form on planet Earth. Accomplishing amazing things is what they will be remembered for by whichever life form takes sentient center stage in the far-flung future. The first thing to remember about anything you try to accomplish is that failure is imminent. Failure, the art of getting it wrong, is how all good discovery is made. Thomas Edison didn't just have a bright idea for a working light bulb. He invented thousands of dimly lit bulbs that fizzled out right away until one day he failed to get it wrong. James Dyson didn't come up with a brilliant new vacuum cleaner on a whim. He came up with over 5,000 prototypes, over 15 years for vacuum cleaners that didn't suck at all until one day he failed to get it wrong. And for every accomplishment that seems to show greatness, brilliance, or genius, we must remember that this is the result of a tremendous embrace of failure, and that any accomplishment casts a long shadow only because of how late in the day we are seeing it. Embracing failure, learning from mistakes, and pressing on isn't just the sort of thing that some great inventors do. It's what we all celebrate together each time we tune into This Week in Science. Coming up next.
We're going to do a whole show again?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's start from the top.
Okay.
Good science to you, Blair. Whoa. Where's Kiki? Where'd you go? I guess you're not here today. Well, that's your brain. I got some stories about some stuff. It's going to be really great.
Okay. Anyway. Yeah. That's the show. Ooh, I got the yawn out.
Yeah, you usually start the show with that.
Yeah. I drink a lot of coffee in the afternoon today. I was like, I gotta keep the energy up.
Yeah, I did that too. Which I needed to. I did like 12 hours of cell counts today.
Oh my god.
I was like so out of my mind right there.
I had 10 teenagers at the zoo today.
Wow, busy day at the zoo. I can't believe that many teenagers went to a zoo.
Well, it's no, they were volunteering for me, so I was in charge of them.
Nice.
So the teens require a little more energy.
Why is that?
Because they sass, and I sass back.
Oh.
But the sassing back requires some energy. Yeah. You got any fun after show stuff, Justin?
No, actually, unfortunately, tonight I gotta go.
That's all right. I'm gonna go to bed.
But I think we did a good job. I think Kiki would be proud of us. And we actually didn't talk at all about how the NASA find. So we've left that.
Oh yeah, we left it for Kiki.
Yeah, so, because she's been sort of our.
I can't believe we found green aliens and we didn't talk about it at all.
We didn't talk about the life that was found on Mars.
We didn't talk about the Martians.
That may not have happened. We don't know because Kiki isn't back yet, and she's the one who it goes all of the space.
I cannot believe
go to her mailbox.
The news of alien life forms that have their own subterranean cities. Until next week, you'll all have to wait.
You're gonna have to wait. Cliffhanger. Don't Google it because that would ruin it.
Yeah. Oh, Hot Rod wanted to know why I'm using my phone for music. So here's the deal.
Yeah.
So I have a soundboard, but every time I've used it, there have been complaints about the sound because I think I need an extra something. Because I can't hear the sound levels I put out.
Oh, gotcha.
So the sound levels.
Sorry, is it something in a pre-show that I would be able to tell, or is it an audio that I'm not even hearing direct?
That's a good question.
I should be able to hear it because right?
You should.
Yeah.
It's hard. So every time I've used the soundboard, somebody has complained in the chat room that either we have different sounds or the music is almost inaudible or the music is too loud and it's blowing out people's ears or, so Justin's too loud or Justin's too quiet or no. So when I do the soundboard, I plug the soundboard into my computer and I can play sounds directly from my computer to the broadcast. So it's supposed to be much better sound quality.
So
the microphone that I use is equally good.
So there's a monitor button. When you're doing that and hit the monitor button, can you hear it?
Yes. So I can hear what I'm playing, but apparently the levels are not accurate to how they broadcast.
Oh.
So yes, the equalizer is what I would need to adjust. There's equalizer knobbies, technical word.
Sliders,
On
and knobbies.
There's sliders
knobbies
and
sliders.
knobbies. There's sliders and knobbies on the soundboard. There's too many, to be honest. But
there's exactly the amount that.
No, there's not. There's way more than there needs to be. This is like for like a DJ is what's on there.
No,
I could
it's
use
for recording studio.
a third of that.
The equipment.
Regardless, there's all these things that I could adjust on my end, but I have no way of knowing how it's affecting all of you.
So
that is why I have not used it lately, is that every time I've gone to the extra 45 minutes of work to set it up, somebody complains.
I'm wondering if, but people are complaining about the phone too. So I'm wondering if.
Yeah, but the phone gets fixed in post.
I'm wondering if we were in a state of inviting on live onto the show and then just go, like we didn't have the offline preamble time, or we just weren't utilizing it. Like,
so I think the problem is that you hear me, but not you.
I do not hear me.
Right. No. So that's the problem, is that I can hear everything, but the levels that I'm not hearing are not true to what's going out.
Your voice in your head. Now that you say this, now I can't tell if I'm hearing me through the headphones or if I'm just hearing you in my head.
See, this is the problem, is that like you can't tell me if you and I are the same volume.
Correct.
Because you're speaking.
Correct.
So that is the issue.
But I can tell if the music is inordinately louder, or if it's what's the saturating, like if it's going over, like I'll be able to hear that stuff. I'll be able to hear it in relation to you, which should be fine.
Yes, but so that's honestly the thing is, Kiki doesn't care too much about music levels and the music on the phone, because she in post changes the music anyway for our audio recording.
That's a pain in the...
Yes, I agree with you. But she said she would rather do that than have one of us be louder than the other one. So this setup makes it so we are equally loud and people can hear us and everything is fine. And so that is the current issue. If there's a way that I can figure out how to make all of us the same volume, then it's worth it to fix the music. But if I have to pick music versus voice volumes, I will pick voice volumes. So that is why I'm currently on the setup. But if there's something else that I need, or there's a way that I could test all that before the show starts, then I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think there is.
Yes, Hot Rod, I agree with you, except that I won't know what I'm doing. So I would need. He wants me to put in some time playing with the soundboard. I need somebody to come over and show me how to use it. Then.
So the real way that the soundboard is used is not by. It would be in a soundproof booth. Your microphone cord would go into a soundproof booth where somebody else would be working that board, and they were hearing you. Right. And in relation to the music, and in relation to me, and
so like podcast studios, they have an engineer doing that.
Right. Yeah. So we just need to hire a tech.
Yeah, I agree.
And all move to a studio.
Let's all move to a studio.
Yeah, we'd have to move to the studio because there's no way we could afford rent and a studio. It would have to be living. Yeah. It would have to be where we lived, and the tech would also have to be somebody that we kidnapped. Because we can't afford to pay.
No. You're forgetting something. Kiki can offer credits.
Can offer what?
Credits.
What does that mean? I don't know what credits.
You know, college.
Oh, really?
Might as well kidnap somebody. It's the same price.
Kidnap somebody. I'm telling you, it's easier.
No, but I'm saying just, people will work for free for credits.
I just feel like somebody's more motivated if they've been kidnapped to work for free than if you just like.
I think they're more motivated if their grade depends on your evaluation.
That could be a thing. All right, I really do have to go. I'm not going to kidnap anybody. That was just a joke.
I would like to offer credits, but unfortunately, I am not represented by a university, so I cannot. But that's all Kiki. She'll figure it out. And I'm with you, Ed. If the voices sound good, that's the most important thing. Kiki often splices in the music in post, even when we have proper music, because it sounds better that way.
Oh.
So that's why when she told me that, I was like,
about it.
I'm gonna stick with this setup for right now. So we'll see.
It's just you, the live audience. You're the
Yes.
only ones losing.
So you'll just have to listen to the audio recording later, so you can get the good
it's
stuff.
normally fine. This is actually just an odd thing when Kiki, of all people, isn't part of the show.
Yeah, I know. Which, like, come on.
Yeah.
Kiki, you're not allowed to have a life. No, she is.
Right, I know. Like, we gave up our lives. We could be married. We could have, right? Like, we could be traveling the world with our highfalutin careers, but we sacrificed everything to do this show.
Yeah.
And the doctor takes a day off.
I know.
My goodness.
You know, sometimes everybody needs a day. And she got her day with Janelle Monáe.
Which is good. I'm still saying goodbye.
Bye. Say goodnight, Justin.
Good night, Justin. Say goodnight, Blair.
Good night, Blair. Good night, Kiki.
Good night, minions.
Oh.
Okay.
I'm saying goodnight to her because she's watching the video later.
She's not watching.
In the future. Good night, Kiki.
We should do that sometime. Watch the show. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.